Welcome back to Marvel's Breakdown, the series where I go over the Easter eggs and references to original Marvel comics in Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross's 1994 series Marvels. Today I will be going over Marvels number 2, which came out in February 1994. Of course, while there are plenty of non-comics references in these books, such as cameos of former US President John F. Kennedy or the members of the Beatles painted into the background of scenes, here I will only be reviewing the comics-specific references. I would also like to preface this with saying that you do not need to know all of these intricate continuity details in order to appreciate Marvels as a series. I'm only doing this because I find these references to original Marvel comics fascinating. I highly encourage you to read Marvels with or without this knowledge. And with that, let's get started. As is the case with all the issues in this series, the events of Marvels number 2 are set in roughly the same time period as the original Marvel comics they reference. In this case, Marvels number 2 covers the events of the Marvel Universe from about Avengers number 6, which was published in July 1964, to the Uncanny X-Men number 16, which was published in January 1966. However, since comic publication dates are usually around 2 months ahead of their release, these books probably came out between May 1964 and November 1965. So the events of Marvels number 2 covers about a year and a half of Silver Age Marvel comics. Before diving into the issue itself, a quick look at the cover reveals founding member of the X-Men Angel, rescuing the original Marvel's character Maggie from an anti-mutant crowd. More on Maggie later. Page 1 opens with Phil Sheldon in the offices of the Daily Globe, a newspaper competitor to the far more well-known Daily Bugle of Spider-Man fame. The editor here is Barney Bushkin, who first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 27 when Peter Parker, fed up with J. Jonah Jameson, decided to sell some photos of his Spider-Man alter ego to a different paper. Bushkin, though enthusiastic, ended up being a bit too nosy for Peter, who ended up going back to Jameson. While he wouldn't appear again until 1976's Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 22, he presumably was still in charge of the Globe throughout most of Marvel's Silver Age, and thus interacts with Phil a lot in his job as a freelance photographer. The 3 costumed maniacs Bushkin references are the members of the first Masters of Evil, a group of villains assembled under Baron Zemo in Avengers number 6, in which the group attacks New York City with a super glue known as Adhesive X. It is this same attack which opens Marvel's number 2. This group includes the Melter, an Iron Man villain who could conveniently melt iron with a beam he accidentally created, Radioactive Man, a scientist who made himself radioactive in order to fight Thor on behalf of communist China, and the Black Knight, a scientist who devised multiple superweapons and somehow mutated a flying horse by injecting the right portion of an eagle's blood cells to grow it wings. The heroes listed further down the page by Phil all appeared early on in Marvel's Silver Age, which kicked off with the birth of the Fantastic Four, who first appeared in Fantastic Four number 1. Thor made his debut in Journey into Mystery number 83, while Hank Pym, after appearing in Tales to Astonish number 27 and debuting as Ant-Man in Tales to Astonish number 35, made the transition from Ant-Man to Giant Man in Tales to Astonish number 49. Namor the Submariner returned to the Marvel Universe after his series Submariner Comics cancellation in 1955, to become an on-again, off-again foe of the Fantastic Four in Fantastic Four number 4. On page 2, Captain America appears, returning to public superheroics after close to 2 decades of being frozen in ice at the end of World War II. This was facilitated when Namor, coming across a frozen Cap, threw him into the sea, whereupon he was discovered by the Avengers and joined them in Avengers number 4. This depiction of Captain America running through New York City is not from the original Avengers number 6, though it likely comes from him searching for Zemo at the end of the comic. The lady's reference to him vaulting clear across 34th Street does not seem to be in reference to any then-contemporary Cap appearance, though it could be a callback to when the villain the Acrobat posed as Captain America and fought the Human Torch in Strange Tales number 114, though that story took place in the Human Torch's hometown of Glenville and not New York City. New character Fred's mention of the Black Knight buzzing Canal Street is probably in reference to the second time he does so in the comic, due to most of the events depicted here being near the back half of Avengers number 6. Page 3 depicts the Black Knight's said buzzing, as well as Iron Man likely on his way to apprehend the Radioactive Man. Page 4 has numerous direct allusions to Avengers number 6. The panels of Radioactive Man and his apprehension are directly from the original comic, as is the panel of Iron Man and the Melter. The depiction of Thor apprehending the Black Knight didn't appear in the original, with the story cutting away just before Thor struck, but the event presumably did occur. Page 5's iconic Giant Man shot is also almost directly from the original comic, in which Giant Man chases Zemo's heli-hover pilot by navigating the roofs of the city. Page 6, alongside its references to real books such as Seduction of the Innocent and Emergency Exit, includes the fictional book Santo Rico, Country in Crisis. This is in reference to a fictional Central American country where Giant Man and the Wasp overthrew an illegitimate dictator in Tales to Astonish number 54. The Fantastic Four's first press conference, mentioned by Bennett Schwade, is not depicted in the original Silver Age of comics, with them simply becoming public figures between the events of Fantastic Four number 1 and number 2. However, Busiek would go on to depict this event in 2009's Marvel's Eye of the Camera number 1. The comment about the Parkway interchange leads into page 7, in which the second Human Torch, Johnny Storm, makes the Fantastic Four alert signal. This event, down to the reference of the Parkway interchange, is directly from Strange Tales number 123, in which the Torch is signaling to the Thing as part of a fight against the original Beetle. The mention of the Hulk later down the page is the first reference to the green, not-quite hero of the Silver Age. Not much on page 8 apart from a name drop of Daily Bugle reporter Ben Urich amid real-world writers. This is a character who wouldn't debut until 1978's Daredevil number 153, though since he was established as an already longtime Bugle reporter in that comic, his reference here is justified. After Phil leaves Empire Books' office on page 9, behind him can be seen the fictional department store Benson's, which is stocking fashions based off of the Wasp. Both the store and all of these mannequins appeared in Tales to Astonish number 58. The rest of the fashions which appear after this page appear to be Ross originals, and not from the original comic. Page 10's description of the X-Men trying to save a construction worker isn't from any original source, though it is similar to an event from Uncanny X-Men number 2. Page 11 reveals the X-Men in all their creepy glory, including Angel from the cover at the top, and from left to right, Iceman, Beast, Cyclops, and Marvel Girl. Not many references in pages 12 or 13, but on page 14 we meet Phil's children, Jenny and Beth, acting out a fight between the Hulk and the Thing. While the two did fight in Fantastic Four number 12, this fight in particular is probably in reference to the far more public brawl which occurred in Fantastic Four number 25 and number 26. The Hulk even climbed on top of an unfinished building in those comics, which Beth seems to be emulating here. This page also has the first explicit reference to Spider-Man, who, despite J. Jonah Jameson's crusade against the Wall Crawler, is viewed by the girls as a hero, albeit an icky one. Their later fight on page 15, which is inspired by the Human Torch and the villain the Eel, is in reference to the events of both Strange Tales number 112 and number 117, though number 112 is a likelier candidate for the girls to be aware of, as it seems to have been far more widely reported on as a result of the Human Torch nearly dying during the events of that comic. Expanding on that, on page 16 in Phil's darkroom, we see a picture Phil took of the Eel, seemingly approaching to attack him. It's a bit unclear as to when this picture could have been taken, since most of the Eel's crimes and fights were relatively private. However, he did leave jail in costume after finishing his sentence in Strange Tales number 117 for some reason, so it could have happened then. Page 17's Giant Man and Spider-Man fight, which included the unmentioned Wasp, occurred in Tales to Astonish number 57, as the result of the machinations of Giant Man villain Egghead. The police don't explicitly blockade the area in the original comic, though they do send reinforcements to follow and stop the fight, which could easily include a blockade. Thor's flight here is likely related to his fight with the Cobra and Mr. Hyde in Journey into Mystery number 105 and 106. This particular flight could be any number from 105, but it is more likely his flight back to the office of his alter ego, Dr. Don Blake, at the end of 106, due to Journey into Mystery number 106 and Tales to Astonish number 57 being released the same month. There's also a quick reference to the unseen Avengers mansion on this page, which at this point was simply a mansion owned by Iron Man's alter ego Anthony Stark, in which he allowed the Avengers to meet. Page 18's Daily Globe newsroom is full of references. To start, Kraven the Hunter, or Kraven the Big Game Hunter as he's referred to here, arrived in America from Africa in Amazing Spider-Man number 15 to hunt Spider-Man on behalf of the Spider-Man villain Chameleon. The Heavy Machinery show was interrupted by Thor's earlier referenced fight with the Cobra and Mr. Hyde, in which they used one of the machines on display, an atomic-powered hydraulic hoist, to temporarily separate Thor from his hammer. The police barricade is another reference to the Giant Man Spider-Man fight, and the tip on the name of the Beetle is in reference to the villain who the Human Torch was fighting the previous day when he was signaling the Thing. The sculpturer Bushkin references is longtime Thing girlfriend and daughter of the puppet master Alicia Masters. While she never had a sculpture exhibit during the Silver Age, it does make sense that a prolific artist like her would have one. The sculpture exhibit on pages 19 and 20 are full of cameos. Let's break it down panel by panel. Page 19, panel 1 has Alicia herself in the background, and Norman Osborn, the alter ego of the Green Goblin and CEO of Oscorp, is at the bottom left. The statues that can be seen here include, clockwise, the Hulk, the original Super Skrull, Namor the Submariner, Iron Man in his Steve Ditko redesigned suit which debuted in Tales of Suspense number 48, Rama Tut, and Doctor Doom. The Gladiator statue in the center is from Alicia's home in Fantastic Four number 66. Panel 2 features Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, and the Invisible Girl, Sue Storm, front and center, with another, more abstract Alicia sculpture from Fantastic Four number 66 in the background. The reference to Sue and Namor possibly having a relationship has some basis due to Namor's love for her, which dates to when he first laid eyes on her in Fantastic Four number 4. Sue, already involved with Reed, did have some feelings for Namor, but ultimately never left Reed for him. Panel 3 includes the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, with his flames out, leading his then-girlfriend, Dory Evans. Behind them is Anthony Stark, now better known as Tony Stark, the alter ego of Iron Man, and, cut off on the right taking photos of the exhibit, is Peter Parker. The statue behind Johnny and Dory is of Thor. Page 20, panel 1, has Alicia and Stark up front. Behind them, from left to right, are Rick Jones, notable partner of the Hulk and later the Avengers and Captain America, Willie Lumpkin, the Fantastic Four's mailman, and Pepper Potts and Happy Hogan, Stark's personal assistant and chauffeur/bodyguard respectively. Panel 2, from left to right, includes Jane Foster and Thor's then alter ego Dr. Don Blake, looking at a statue of Thor villain the Executioner. Next to them are Foggy Nelson, Karen Page, and Matt Murdock of the Daredevil comics, looking at, appropriately, a statue of Daredevil. Matt in particular is feeling the statue since he, like Alicia, is blind, though with heightened senses due to being Daredevil himself. The Wasp and Giant Man, in their civilian identities of Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym, look at a statue of Namor, with Dr. Stephen Strange just to the right of them. Panel 5 features both Alicia's boyfriend The Thing and a statue of The Thing inspired by the one from Fantastic Four number 28, though this one must be a recreation since that one was destroyed by Marvel Girl. In panel 6, behind the gossiping woman, is the founder of the X-Men, Charles Xavier, accompanied by Jean Grey and Scott Summers, the alter egos of Marvel Girl and Cyclops. As for whether any of these statues appear in the original comics, for the most part, they're new, apart from the two from Fantastic Four number 66 and the Thing statue from Fantastic Four number 28. However, Alicia did create miniatures of Doctor Doom and Namor the Submariner in Fantastic Four number 10, which could have been leading up to these larger versions of those sculptures. Page 21 doesn't have many references, so moving on to page 22, the Williams embezzlement case Phil references at dinner is from Avengers number 9, a situation which ultimately leads to Simon Williams becoming Wonder Man. The Daily Gazette think piece Phil mentions at dinner actually appears in the original Avengers number 9 comic, though it doesn't seem to have any of his Iron Man pictures, at least in the portion of the paper we see. Page 23's announcement of Reed and Sue's engagement is staged like an exact panel from Fantastic Four number 36, though this one must take place before that panel as the original is post-announcement. Page 24 depicts the fallout of the momentous announcement. Sue's hairstyle changed a lot in the 60s, but the particular look in this panel debuted in Fantastic Four number 36, alongside the engagement announcement. Ironically, this hairstyle would change by the time the wedding actually occurred. The cover of the Life magazine in panel 3 is directly from a photo session in Fantastic Four number 24. Daily Bugle publisher J. Jonah Jameson turns up in person in panel 4. His remark that he and Phil go way back is in reference to Marvel's number 1, though Phil's friend in that issue wasn't directly noted as being Jameson. The Fantastic Four's own engagement party occurred in Fantastic Four number 36, and included the Avengers and X-Men as guests. Page 25 expands beyond the Fantastic Four into the wider Marvel world. The reporter in panel 2 is Harris Hobbs, who watched Thor fight Karl Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man, who was granted the magical ability to absorb the qualities of anything he came into contact with, by Thor's adoptive brother Loki, in Journey into Mystery number 114. Panel 3's public revelation of the Avengers lineup changing is straight from the end of Avengers number 16. The original members of Thor, Iron Man, Giant Man, and the Wasp were replaced by former villains Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch, after the first set of Avengers decided to take a break for a while. Captain America was the only Avenger to make the transition to the new team. This press conference seems to be the exact one from the end of Avengers number 16. Panel 4's newspaper is directly from Fantastic Four number 38, in which the Frightful Four, made up of the villains the Wizard, the Sandman, former Pastepot Pete the Trapster, and then villain and future Inhuman Madame Medusa, kidnapped Sue Storm. The final panel on this page shows Phil recording one of the fights between Daredevil and Stiltman in Daredevil number 8. The image is in reference to the comic's cover, though the actual fight depicted is more likely one of these two instances from inside the issue. The anti-mutant mob on page 26 includes references to an anti-alien mob from 1978's The Silver Surfer, the Ultimate Cosmic Experience graphic novel, including references to the name of the Kemperers. This implies Phil lives in the same neighborhood that appeared in that story. Following this, on page 27, is the reveal of the mutant girl Maggie, a new character who debuted in this issue of Marvels. However, the inspiration for the character is actually from EC Comics' Weird Science number 20, which features a hated mutant girl who is hounded all her life by anti-mutant sentiments, and bears a striking resemblance to Maggie here. Pages 28 and 29 have no real Marvel references, so moving on to page 30 reveals Madame Medusa in her civilian disguise from Fantastic Four number 38 at the top left. Phil's mutant research uncovers some of the X-Men's earliest cases, with the freeing of a military base from Magneto occurring in the Uncanny X-Men number 1, and the protecting of defense secrets from the villain The Vanisher taking place in the Uncanny X-Men number 2. The team's attendance of Reed and Sue's engagement party took place in Fantastic Four number 36. The Mutant Menace globe spread is directly taken from the Uncanny X-Men number 14, as part of Bolivar Trask's anti-mutant movement, leading up to his unveiling of the Sentinels. Phil's reference to the X-Men sightings in Greenwich Village on page 31 is due in part to their frequenting the coffee shop The Coffee A Go-Go, which is located in Greenwich. The Iceman and Beast sighting is very similar to a scene in which they're chased out of costume in the Uncanny X-Men number 8, though according to Alex Ross, this is not that same scene. Page 32 shows the lead-up to Reed and Sue's momentous wedding from Fantastic Four Annual number 3. The Brooklyn chapter of the Fantastic Four fan club do indeed make it right up front outside the Baxter building during the ceremony, with this very banner appearing early on in that issue. The girls getting excited about Tony Stark and Lauren Bacall are Patsy Walker and Hetty Wolf from Marvel's teen romance books at the time, who also appeared in the original wedding issue. Another of Marvel's non-superhero characters is name-dropped here in Millie Collins, aka Millie the Model. Behind them, just as in the original comic, is the Puppet Master attempting to control a guest to poison the Thing. Even further behind them is a Merry Marvel Marching Society banner, which is also directly from the original comic and was the main Marvel Comics fan club in the 1960s. Page 33 presents the wedding ceremony itself, almost directly from Fantastic Four Annual number 3. Phil's comment about it going smoothly with no attacks from villains is ironic, since in the original comic Behind Closed Doors, there was a giant fight between almost every existing Marvel hero and villain at the time. At the wedding itself are plenty of cameos. Clockwise, starting with the happy couple, are Sue Storms, Reed Richards, The Thing, Alicia Masters, Hawkeye, Iron Man, Thor, Willie Lumpkin, J. Jonah Jameson, and Norman Osborn. At the back of the room are S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and former Howling Commandos Dum Dum Dugan, Gabriel Jones, and Nick Fury, who are actually about to refuse Stan Lee and Jack Kirby entry to the wedding, just as in the original comic. Continuing on the right side of the page are Foggy Nelson, Karen Page, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Captain America, and Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Intriguingly, the X-Men were present at this ceremony in the original comic, but are not present here, likely due to their imminent involvement in the first ever Sentinel attack. The press's wedding after-party on page 34 includes a who's who of Marvel newsrooms, including, from left to right, Ben Urich, J. Jonah Jameson, Bugle reporter and former crime boss Frederick Foswell, then Peter Parker girlfriend Betty Brant, and Barney Bushkin. Behind Betty, though unspecified by the comic's creators, could be her future husband and Bugle reporter, Ned Leeds. The newspaper touting the All-Winner Squad is in reference to a post-World War II superhero team. The team's members, from left to right, were Namor the Submariner, the original Human Torch's sidekick Toro, the original Human Torch himself, Captain America, Miss America, the Wizard, and Bucky. The Captain America and Bucky present here are not actually Steve Rogers or Bucky Barnes, though, but rather their replacements after their disappearance near the end of World War II. Bucky was replaced by Fred Davis Jr., and Cap was replaced by both William Naslund, the former Spirit of 76, and Jeff Mace, the former Patriot. At the bottom of page 34 is part of a broadcast of a debate on mutants between Charles Xavier and Bolivar Trask, which occurred in the Uncanny X-Men number 14, and was broadcast over TV in that issue as well. The dialogue is almost exactly the same as that in the original issue. These direct references to the Uncanny X-Men number 14 continue on to page 35, with most of these panels being directly taken from the original debate. The riots which occur over the next few pages as a result of this broadcast are expanded upon here from ones which occur in the original comic. These next few pages don't contain many comic references apart from the Sentinels flying above the city on page 37 and, more prominently, on page 40, which does occur in the original comic. While they only really appear in black and white or in shadow in Marvel's, these Sentinels are not actually of the more iconic purple and gray design, but instead a brighter red and blue from the original comic, which can actually be seen here on some of the more well-lit Sentinels. The newspaper Phil steps on in page 42 is directly from Fantastic Four Annual number 3, in which Doctor Doom tears it up at the beginning of the issue. The news broadcast Phil overhears on page 44 describes the further events of the Uncanny X-Men number 14, as well as issues number 15 and number 16, in which the X-Men track the Sentinels to their base and eventually defeat them. It's a bit unclear as to exactly where that base is in the original comic, though the Westchester area is also home to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, the home of the X-Men. The final references on page 45 are of the fight between Iron Man and Titanium Man in Tales of Suspense number 69 to number 71, in which the two fight as surrogates for the United States and the Soviet Union respectively. The NTN mentioned is not a real broadcast network, but rather the fictional National Television Network, which first appeared in the Uncanny X-Men number 14, in which it hosted the televised Xavier and Trask mutant debate. And that's that! Every reference I was able to find to the original Marvel Comics in Marvel's number 2. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you spotted any references I missed.